listening to Radio NYC.
People with disabilities are more likely to experience violence at the hands of an intimate partner. New Yorkers with disabilities should not feel alone. Support is available. In New York City, all victims of domestic violence, regardless of their language, immigration status, or disabilities, are offered services to help them regain control over their lives. If you or someone you know is being abused, please call 311 for help.
Hi, this is Dr. Tom Farley, New York City's Health Commissioner. One thing that all New Yorkers can do for their health is to know their HIV status. If you've had sex even once, you should get tested for HIV. If you're HIV positive, you can get medical care to help you feel better and live longer. If you're HIV negative, you can stay that way. Your regular healthcare provider can give you an HIV test. Free HIV tests are also available at health department clinics in all 5 boroughs. For clinic locations and hours, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Bailon. Having an official ID is one of the keys to success. Want to open a bank account, apply for a job, register for college soon? You'll need an official ID to do any of these things. Don't drive? Don't worry. You can get a non-driver state ID and it only costs about $10. But in order to get an ID, there are a few things you'll need, and we're here to help. Go to nyc.gov and click on or search ID to get started.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Hola, me llamo Ana y trabajo en el Departamento de Asuntos al Consumidor. A veces puede ser abrumador para administrar su dinero, pero los centros de poder financieros de la ciudad pueden ayudarle a tomar control brindándole asesoramiento financiero profesional, gratuito e individual, ofrecido en toda la ciudad en diferentes idiomas. Nuestros consejeros pueden ayudar a reducir su deuda, preparar un presupuesto, abrir una cuenta bancaria segura y mucho más. Visite nyc.gov para encontrar el centro más cercano o llame al 311 para pedir una cita ya.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. A fire hydrant is a familiar sight in the city. There are more than 109,000 of them citywide. Summer in New York can be hot, but please don't open fire hydrants to cool off unless you have an approved spray cap. Illegally opened hydrants can reduce the water pressure needed to fight fires and endanger people's lives. Instead, get a spray cap at your local firehouse or take advantage of the city's recreation centers, play streets, pools, and cooling centers. For more information on locations, call 311.
I'm Fatima Sharma, Commissioner of the New York City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. New York City is home to people from more than 190 countries. They're our neighbors and co-workers and an essential part of the fabric that makes us the greatest city in the world. My office helps immigrants make New York City their home. In the wake of Hurricane Sandy, we continue to work to make sure that immigrant communities affected by the storm have access to services that will help them recover and rebuild their lives. To learn more, visit nyc.gov or contact 311.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
Hello, this is Allison Tachi, President of City Parks Foundation. This month, we're asking you to give back to your neighborhood parks and playgrounds on It's My Park Day. Hosted by Partnerships for Parks, It's My Park Day is a public-private partnership that brings together thousands of New Yorkers to rake, plant, clean, and paint in parks across the city. Events begin on May 4th and continue throughout the month. Visit nyc.gov to find out how you can get involved in It's My Park Day and other volunteer activities all year long.
Brooklyn Bridge Park keeps getting better. Hi, I'm Regina Meyer, President of Brooklyn Bridge Park, and we're thrilled to welcome visitors to the brand new Pier 5. Come play on our 5-acre sports field, barbecue on grills at the Picnic Peninsula, or take in the breathtaking views of Lower Manhattan from the promenade. There's more to come later this year when the Pier 2 sports courts make their debut. Check out brooklynbridgepark.org or call 311 for further information. Can't wait to see you at the park.
Hola, yo soy Adrienne Bailón. Tener una identificación oficial puede ser clave para tu éxito. ¿Quieres abrir una cuenta bancaria? ¿Solicitar un trabajo? Vas a necesitar una identificación oficial para hacer cualquiera de estas cosas. Puedes conseguir una identificación estatal para no conductores y solo cuesta $10. Pero para conseguir una identificación hay unas cosas que vas a necesitar. Visite nyc.gov y busque ID para empezar.
I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of Small Business Services.
And I'm Terrence Holliday, Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. Our veterans served our country, and we are proud to serve them.
If you're a veteran or a veteran spouse looking for a job, stop by the Workforce One Veterans Center at 60 Madison Avenue in Manhattan, or at any of the 15 centers in all 5 boroughs. We work with businesses committed to hiring veterans, which means we have jobs for you. For more information, call 311 or visit nyc.gov.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Home is the one place we all expect to be safe, but each day over 1,000 New Yorkers report an incident of domestic violence. Hello, I'm Commissioner Yolanda Jimenez of the Mayor's Office to Combat Domestic Violence. Victims and their children don't have to suffer in silence. If you or someone you know is a victim of family violence, help is available 24 hours a day in all languages by calling 311 and asking for the New York City Domestic Violence Hotline. In emergencies, call 911.
Hello, I'm Taxi and Limousine Commissioner David Yaskey. Did you know that New York City taxicabs are required by law to take passengers anywhere in the 5 boroughs, or to Westchester or Nassau County, or to Newark Airport? In fact, a driver can't even ask where you're going before they accept the trip. So if a taxi driver refuses to serve you, call 311 or visit nyc.gov with the license or medallion number. With your help, the TLC is here to make sure you get where you need to go.
Hi, I'm Rob Walsh, Commissioner of the Department of Small Business Services. Figuring out what permits and licenses are needed in order to start and expand a business in New York City can be a challenging task. That's why we created New York City Business Express. It's a free one-stop website where business owners can access the information they need to open up shop. You can apply online for many permits, settle outstanding fines, and find incentives to lower the cost of doing business. Visit nyc.gov or call 311 and ask for NYC Business Express.
This is Mayor Mike Bloomberg. Remember to dial 311 for all New York City government services and information.
Soy Iris Jiménez Hernández, vicepresidenta de HHC, su sistema de hospitales públicos. Este Día de las Madres, dele a su mamá el mejor regalo, una cita para una mamografía. En HHC ofrecemos mamografías a muy bajo costo o sin costo durante todo el año. Visite nuestro sitio web o marque el 311 para el hospital público más cercano.
Hi, this is New York City Transportation Commissioner Jeanette Sadakan. For most New Yorkers, our 6,000 miles of streets are our front yards, so we're doing everything we can to make them as safe, attractive, and as sustainable as they can be. By keeping our roads and bridges in good repair, building new public plazas and bike lanes, we're creating world-class streets for a world-class city. Please help us keep our streets safe and smooth by calling 311 to report potholes and other traffic concerns in your neighborhood.
This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Every day, 9 million New Yorkers rely on DEP to deliver 1 billion gallons of the world's best drinking water to their homes and businesses. Renowned for its purity and taste, our tap water comes by gravity from the Catskills, 125 miles away, making it the right choice for your health and the environment. Look for our New York City Water on the Go fountains throughout the 5 boroughs and learn more about New York City's water supply at nyc.gov. New York City Water, the right choice for the environment, your health, and your wallet. This is Carter Strickland, Environmental Protection Commissioner for New York City. Our restaurant scene is one of the best in the world, serving millions of New Yorkers and tourists every year. If you run a restaurant or food service business, remember to properly empty your grease traps. Pouring grease down the drain or into a city catch basin is illegal and can cause significant costly sewer backups. For a description of grease regulations and information regarding proper disposal methods, visit nyc.gov.
You're listening to Radio NYC.
what better way to get some outdoor exercise than rolling up your sleeves and helping care for Brooklyn's Prospect Park? Hi, I'm Emily Lloyd, president of the Prospect Park Alliance. Volunteering at Prospect Park offers many exciting ways to make a difference in the lives of all who benefit from the park. Individuals, families, students, and retirees can all have fun and learn something while helping the park. We provide the training and equipment. You decide how much time you can spare. For more information, call 311.
Well, good morning. We're here to talk about something that is very important. This city is the safest big city in the nation, and thanks to Ray Kelly and all of the men and women of the NYPD and people in the jail system and district attorneys and the public, everybody working together, we are becoming even safer. To put some numbers to it, in 2012 we had fewer murders and shootings than in any year since comparable records started to be kept. And the number of guns used in crimes is also going down too. This year we're on track to reduce such violence even further, and that is indisputably good news, and it's the result of our concerted and coordinated efforts to crack down on illegal firearms. And that's what we want to talk about this morning. Efforts that combine tough legislation, strict enforcement, and innovative litigation. Nevertheless, sadly, last Saturday, a 17-year-old boy in Brooklyn was fatally shot, wounded in the head and the chest. Police are still investigating this murder and haven't yet recovered the weapon used in it, but there is a strong likelihood that the gun came from out of state, and that underscores a harsh reality. Despite our best efforts, in the months ahead, more New Yorkers will be murdered, maimed, or victimized in other ways by criminals armed with illegal guns. And the principal reason is that despite all we do to keep our city safe, we're increasingly at the mercy of weak national gun laws and weak gun laws in other states. We've done what we can do here, but unfortunately it is very easy to carry a gun from one state to another. And so we really do have an interest in what goes on in the rest of this country, and that interest is translated right into keeping New Yorkers safe and right into murders when they do occur here in this city, murdering our people. The Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives investigates and compiles records about weapons recovered at crime scenes in our city, including where they came from. And these records show, sadly, that the percentage of such crime scene guns originating from out of state has been increasing in recent years. In 2009, 85% of such crime guns came from out of state. In 2010, the percentage was 86. In 2011, the most recent year for which complete numbers are available, 90% of crime guns came from out of state. Now, the map and the table on display here show the 10 states beyond our borders where most guns recovered at crime scenes in our city came from. All of the states in this top 10, as Criminal Justice Coordinator John Feinblack will describe in a moment, have some form of private sale loophole where background checks are not required. And 9 of the 10 had an export rate of crime guns higher than the national average in all 50 states. Year after year, guns flow into our city from states that don't have anything like the kind of strictly enforced tough gun laws that we do. And not only do we enforce our laws vigorously, no state in the country has tougher punishments for those who break those laws. And we have been attacking this problem from every angle, but we cannot do it alone. Some have questioned why we as a city government are pursuing changes to federal and state laws. And this is the reason why. The reasons could not be more clear. Because as the numbers that we're presenting today show, despite the ongoing drop in violence in our city and the continuing decline in the number of guns used in crimes in our city, every year there are still thousands of guns that are transported across state lines to our city and that then kill and maim New Yorkers. And that demonstrates in no uncertain terms how weak gun laws at the federal and state level have a direct, dangerous, and growing impact on the safety of people in our city. And that's why we'll keep doing all we can to stem the flow of illegal guns into the 5 boroughs. I can't think of a more clear or basic responsibility of a mayor, and that includes allying ourselves with officials in other states and cities to push Congress and the state legislatures to enact the common sense gun reforms the vast majority of Americans support. Topping the list of such reforms must be the kind of sane background checks that keep firearms out of the hands of criminals and mentally disturbed people. To those who say, stay out of our state, our answer is, we'd love to. Just as soon as you stop letting guns seep into the black market, land in the hands of criminals, and be used to murder our citizens. So on that note, let me turn things over to Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. Ray?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the last few weeks, much has been written about the sentencing of the murderer of detectives Rodney Andrews and James Nimrin during an undercover gun buy in Staten Island. One thing that hasn't been mentioned was the gun that was used. It was a Rossi .44 caliber handgun. And not surprising, as the mayor said, one of the guns, 90% of which that we confiscate here, come from out of state. This particular gun came from Decatur, Georgia. Right now, today, police officers will be engaged in perhaps the most dangerous work in all of law enforcement, and that is conducting undercover gun buys. And police officers on patrol risk their lives every day taking guns off the street. So far this year, we've taken 1,786 guns off the street through arrest. We've also recovered an additional 408 guns so far this year through gun buyback programs in churches. And another 317 were recovered when individuals walked into police stations to surrender them. Now, we continue to do all of this to keep New York City safe. Yet there's still no shortage of weapons coming from, in essence, south to north through the Iron Pipeline. As the mayor indicated, New York City is the safest big city in America, and it's becoming safer. The nearly 30% reduction in murders to date from last year's record low is evidence that we're doing something right here in New York. But we could even do better if Congress helped. Guns are by far the weapon most commonly used to murder New Yorkers. So far this year, 58% of the city's murder victims were shot. The next highest percentage, 23%, were stabbed. So we remain focused on guns to save lives. Police officers take them off the streets of our city every day. Undercover officers help put gun traffickers behind bars. Our clergy, our district attorney, and most recently the city council are all helping us to encourage citizens to voluntarily turn in their guns to the police. And New York City imposes reasonable requirements before issuing licenses that permit individuals to carry handguns. But despite all that we do here in New York City to keep guns out of the hands of criminals, New Yorkers are still killed by guns coming from out of state. We can't build a wall around New York City to keep guns out of New York. But Congress can certainly construct sensible gun laws to strip away the incentives to buy guns in places like Georgia to kill police officers and other New Yorkers. Now, convincing Congress to enact effective gun control becomes harder as Election Day approaches. Mayor Bloomberg has been criticized in some quarters for keeping the pressure on. And indeed, he should not be criticized. He should be commended. He's trying to save lives, and indeed, he is saving lives. So we would simply urge the mayor to keep the pressure on. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ray, thank you. I'd also like to ask John Feinblatt, the city's criminal justice coordinator, for his comments on what the statistics we're presenting today tell us. John?
Thank you. The statistics that the mayor presented today provide us with both good news and some bad news. The good news is obviously that the combination of local legislation, smart enforcement, aggressive litigation, all combine to dramatically reduce gun violence in New York City. But as the mayor said, the bad news is that in an age of easy interstate travel, we are, to some degree, at the mercy of laws beyond our borders. Take Virginia, for instance, the leading source of crime guns in New York City. That state requires no background checks for private sales, and the legislature in that state even recently rolled back their state laws by stripping their one gun a month purchase limit. Or let's look at South Carolina, our third highest exporter and number one exporter if you control for population. That state has no background checks for private sales, and it doesn't even require lost or stolen guns to be reported, which gives traffickers an easy excuse to avoid criminal charges each and every time their guns end up at a crime scene. Or look at Texas or Alabama or Georgia, where guns are coming hundreds of miles to end up in New York City streets. Those states all allow private sales of guns with no background checks, including gun sales at gun shows or gun sales on the internet. In fact, 3 of these states, Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina, all provide more crime guns to New York State than you find from New York State alone. It's an amazing statistic. So that's why Mayors Against Illegal Guns and over 1,000 other mayors and over 1.5 million of our supporters are fighting for background checks and other common sense measures in Washington, and not just in Washington, but in state capitals across the country. Because as this map shows, what happens in Richmond, what happens in Tallahassee, what happens in Atlanta affects what happens to New Yorkers. Their laws affect what happens on our streets every single day. So, some, including the Washington gun lobby, will continually say laws just don't matter, that criminals will always find a way to get a gun. But New York State, New York City, and other states with tough gun laws tell a very different story, just like this map tells. And the simplest way to think about this is just compare the states that have passed background checks to the states that have not. And you'll see how laws actually do make a difference. In states that require background checks, there are 39% fewer law enforcement officers shot to death with handguns. In states that require background checks, there are 38% fewer women murdered by an intimate partner with a gun. In states that require background checks, there are 49% fewer suicides with guns than in states that don't require background checks. New York is showing that common sense measures actually reduce gun violence and save lives. And that's why our 1,000 mayors, and that's why our 1.5 million supporters will continue to fight for common sense gun laws, as well as beat back efforts by the Washington gun lobby to erode those good federal laws and those good state laws that protect people in those states, as well as keep New Yorkers safe. Thank you.
John, thank you. Before taking questions, let me just summarize for our Spanish-speaking New Yorkers. Nuevas estadísticas del gobierno federal demuestran que el 90% de las armas usadas para cometer crímenes aquí en Nueva York vinieron de otros estados. Por eso seguimos trabajando para fortalecer las leyes de armas de fuego en esos estados y en nuestras nación. And with that, we'll be happy to take some questions. Yes, miss. Please identify yourself each time.
Dana Rubenstein, Capital, New York. Has the overall number of recovered crime guns remained the same? In other words, you said that the percentage of out-of-state guns has increased, but has the overall...
They've gone down. But the percentage has actually gone up, as the mayor said, gone up to 90% of out-of-state guns being confiscated here. But the number of crime guns has gone down.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that with the aggressive policing and the well-trained police officers we put on the streets, fewer people are carrying guns. That's the whole idea of exactly what we're doing. It would be wonderful if we never recovered a gun. And we'll work with that as an objective. I think common sense says you probably won't get quite there, but we've made dramatic reductions in the number of guns on the streets, the number of guns that you get when you stop people, and you see it in the fact that we've made a dramatic reduction in the number of people killed, which is what you're trying to get to. Yes, Miss?
So how do you go about tracing the guns back to the state
Sure.
they came from, and also
You identify who you're with, sorry.
Dana Arshin with News 12. How do you go about tracing the guns back to the state they came from, and also any specific breakdowns in each borough here in New York?
What's the question?
How do you trace the guns?
How do you trace guns? We trace guns through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And your second question was what?
Any specific breakdowns in each borough?
One borough versus another.
Yeah, we have them, and we can get them for you through our public information, okay?
Yes, sir.
Andrew Siff from WNBC TV. These numbers are new, but you've been making this case for a long time. Is there anything that you can do to break the logjam either at a federal level or to convince any of these states to enact something?
Yeah,
because
sure.
otherwise it's gridlock.
Well, we are trying to support candidates that understand that Americans want to be safe and that too many Americans are killed, and that reasonable background checks, which are supported by 80 or 90% of the public, to prevent criminals and people with mental problems. And that's all it is. Prevent people with criminal records and mental problems from buying guns. And we've been trying to support those legislators that are in favor of those laws, and will vote for those laws, and will stand up for those kind of laws, and work against those that don't. That's the democratic process. That's the ways you influence government. You elect the people who have the same values you do. And we've been very effective in helping some people get elected and some people not get elected. We still have a ways to go. We don't have another vote yet in the Senate. I hope in September we will get another vote, and I'd love to see us win that. And then we've got to go to the House. But that's exactly what you do. You can do something about it. You could also support candidates in local races. Because states can do the same thing. New York State, and I think it's 14 other states, have background checks on gun shows and internet sales, the same way federal law requires them on gun sales from gun shops. And in those 14 or 15 states, the murder rates are down and the suicide rate is down 50% roughly in every single one of them. And the reason is, if suicide is something typically that you get spur of the moment, and if you can't find a gun on the street, or if it's more difficult, you should see it in the suicide numbers, and there's no question about it. They're all there. These numbers are real, and you can say anything you want. If you're on the floor of the Senate or the House, and nobody can sue you for libel or whatever. But the truth of the matter is, guns kill people. And yes, people have to have the gun and they pull the trigger, but if you have fewer guns in the streets, there's no question there's a lot less shootings and a lot less murders. And the numbers have been clear for a long time.
Let's remember, there have been some substantial victories in the last several months. Look at a state like Delaware that passed very vigorous background checks. Look at Connecticut after Newtown, which did. Look at Colorado, certainly a state with a rich tradition of hunting and gun ownership.
So is it a similar strategy to the same-sex marriage debate in the sense that the states take the lead instead of the federal government?
There's no question you have to work at both levels. And there's also no question that you're playing offense and defense in this. We have recently, through Mayors Against Illegal Guns and the mayor's leadership, fought back efforts in states like Michigan and North Carolina to roll back their permitting system. So you got to play on both the federal and the state level, and you've got to play offense and defense.
I think I saw this gentleman first.
Jonathan Lemire with the Associated Press. I see the overall out-of-state numbers, but is there a state where you've seen a particular surge, like a real increase from, over the last year or two?
Say that again?
Sure. The overall numbers here from out-of-state guns, but is there a particular state where you've seen a real spike in guns coming in?
Virginia has been consistently high, number one, number two. I don't know if you've seen the surge, John. Pennsylvania, these are sort of perennial
Usually it's the same states, it's not necessarily one.
Yeah, what I like, Pennsylvania has a law that, if I understand the law, they sell fireworks. And fireworks, as you know, kids get them and they lose eyes and fingers and that sort of thing. But the Pennsylvania law restricts sales of fireworks to out-of-staters. They believe it's too dangerous for people in Pennsylvania, but they don't mind selling it outside of Pennsylvania. Just think about that. Then the woman right behind you, Miss.
Tina Moore, Daily News. The mayor mentioned a shooting last Saturday. Commissioner, can you give us any specifics about what that shooting was and why we think this gun might have been from out of state?
I can give it to you. I don't have it in front of me, but we'll give you the specifics through DCPI.
Yes, sir.
Colby Hamilton with DNA Info. As was noted, there's been a lot of criticism about some of your actions you've taken outside of the city.
No, there's been a handful of people. 80 or 90% of the public think that we should have these laws. I don't know what percentage of them you hear from, but it's not very many.
There
but go
has
ahead.
been criticism. There has been criticism.
There has been criticism. Okay. Let me point out to you, somebody pointed this out to me the other day. If 90% of the people in New York City love me, 800,000 people don't. So yes, there's always going to be somebody. Now, what's your question?
Well, just that.
So one person criticized me, and now tell me the question.
Okay. Considering the leadership position you've taken on this, are you concerned that some of this criticism is made easier because of that, as it's become you that it's been focused on rather than the issue? Are you concerned at all that this issue is turning into...
This is a lot more than me. This is 1,000 mayors in a coalition. This is 80 and 90% of the public. This is a whole bunch of senators, not quite a 60 yet, but 50-something, who are in favor of this. This is an awful lot of people in the House and both parties who are in favor of it. You know, I just happen to be chosen as the leader of Mayors Against the Coalition, a coalition against illegal guns, which was started by Tom Menino, who's finishing his term in office, a great mayor of Boston, and has really been, to some extent, I think Tom actually came even before it. But yes, because New York gets so much visibility, I've been the spokesman, but it's not about me, okay? I'm less likely to get shot than somebody, unfortunately, in a community where crime is high, and it's in New York, you're a lot less likely to get shot than around the rest of this country. You go to some of these big cities. If you lived in Detroit, instead of 400 murders, they would have per capita 4,400 murders. So you're pretty safe here, but you're not safe enough, and we've got an obligation to keep going. Next question, Ms.
Dana Rubenstein, Capital New York. You mentioned supporting leaders at the local level who support gun control efforts. Yeah. Have you made any decision regarding those Denver politicians facing a recall vote?
Yes, we will offer to help both of those candidates. Yeah, we talked to them. I don't know if we talked to them yesterday or today, but yes, we're going to make I'm going to give some money because I think they've done what's right for the people of Colorado. People of Colorado are Americans. You know, and it shows leadership, and I think you have an obligation to support those that you agree with. Over here, or this young lady next. You have to duck down. There's nothing to do.
Krista Merriweather with the Epoch Times. You said that Virginia has been increasing, or has always been problematic. Is there something you have done working with local law enforcement officials to try and
keep in mind Pat Toomey, who was a conservative Republican senator from Pennsylvania, came out and said he was going to work with Joe Manchin, a conservative Democrat from West Virginia, to pass gun laws in Washington that would require background checks for people with criminal records, and to stop people with criminal records and people with psychiatric problems from getting guns. And he deserves a lot of credit for standing up. John, you want to add something?
Yeah, and you will remember that the mayor initiated undercover investigations and litigation in several states against gun dealers who were clearly knowingly making straw purchases. And when the impact of that was evaluated by academics, they found that the percent of crime guns from those dealers that we sued had dropped by 84% in the following year. So there's no question that shining a spotlight on people who are acting illegally, shining a spotlight on the fact that our background check system is full of holes, makes a difference. and that difference can be measured in gun trafficking and measured in saved lives.
There's a young lady here.
Maria Alvarez, Newsday. Following up on these undercover investigations that seem to bear fruit, are we still focusing on doing more of that, Commissioner, on these undercover investigations?
Absolutely. We just had a briefing today. In what way?
Yeah.
Undercover operations, which I said before, are one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous, undercover type of operations on the part of law enforcement. But I can tell you we are very heavily engaged in that
Is it
type.
crossing the borders? Are we leaving the city and the state to do that undercover investigations?
Is it safe?
No. Do we leave the borders of New York
do
State to
undercover
do those
outside?
undercover
No, we don't do it outside, no. We're only focused on New York City.
Why does it make it so dangerous? Why is it so dangerous?
Why does it make it so dangerous?
Yeah.
Because oftentimes you're dealing with a loaded weapon, or you're dealing with unstable people. Also, in several occasions, they just try to rob the undercover officer, coming with money, and that certainly raises the risk level. And I think it's fair to say that it's a consensus of opinion in law enforcement that this is the most difficult, the most dangerous type of operation to do.
There's a gentleman back here. Wait till
Dean Meminger, New York One News. Specifically, the top two states, Virginia and North Carolina, if you can reiterate, what is it about those states where folks are getting the guns from there and traveling up 85 and 95 into New York City? What is? I know you mentioned something about some states you don't even have to report that you lost your 38.
Well, in Virginia, there is no background check, and in fact, Virginia has rolled back laws rather than pass common sense laws. They've actually taken some common sense laws that they had on the books and wiped them away, such as limits on purchases of guns of one a month. There are about 10 laws that we think make a difference, and you'll find in a state like Virginia probably has less than 5 of those laws in place. They range from background checks to criminal penalties for knowingly selling a gun to prohibiting violent misdemeanors from possessing guns. And so Virginia is just a textbook case of a state that it's not that it just doesn't have background checks, it's actually rolled back some of the laws that it did have. North Carolina doesn't have background checks, for instance, for long gun sales, and unfortunately just, in fact, rolled back some of their laws and are now allowing guns in bars and guns in educational institutions. So it's a series of laws that set the tenor for what happens in that state and makes those states fertile for trafficking. And unfortunately, each of the states on this list are very weak and don't have many of the laws that we think make a difference, and certainly don't look like New York in any respect.
Let me just try to summarize. Our first responsibility is New York City. And guns are coming from elsewhere, and we have to do something about it. And we will, within the law, do whatever we can to keep those guns coming into our city, which are killing our people. As Americans, I think we all have a responsibility to try to reduce the mayhem across this country. This year, 12,000 Americans will get killed with illegal handguns. 19,000 Americans will commit suicide with handguns. It is a national problem, and our standing there is we're citizens of this country. Some states choose not to do it, and some states choose to act more in the interest of protecting their citizens. I suppose that's up to state government. But on a national level, the federal government has to have some policies that apply across all states, and that's what we're trying to urge, that they pass sensible laws. And incidentally, 80 or 90% of the public is in favor of all of these laws. I know of no case where you've had that kind of a favorability rating for something and Congress has turned it down. So far, they have not had the courage to do it, and that's because there are organizations that say if you do these, we'll work against you. And one of the things Mayor's Coalition Against Illegal Guns is trying to do is to say exactly the same thing, but there's a penalty going in the other direction as well. And we think the vast bulk of the American public is behind us. And anybody that has any doubts, I suppose you can look in the paper, see the mayhem every day around this country, and maybe you want to pick up the phone, try to track down their families and ask them how they feel about guns. I think you'll find most of them would say there's too many guns in the streets because nobody's going to be able to bring back their loved ones. If there's other questions, any other topic, I'll take one or two questions if there are. Yes, sir.
Appellate division not overturning the beverage ban?
Number one, we think the law is clear. If you read the law, the judges, I know it's 4 judges, higher level than the first judge, but the judges said things like, it's not right because we didn't include all beverages. Yes, you can drink water. You can drink milk. You can drink a lot of things with no limit on it because those things aren't out there causing obesity. But full sugar drinks have a lot of calories, no nutritional value whatsoever, and don't send a signal to your brain that you're full. So if you eat 500 calories of a hamburger, it's very different than if you drink 500 calories of a full sugar drink. After 500 calories of hamburger, you're full. After 500 calories of full sugar drink, you're just as hungry as you were before. So you'll eat these and you'll go eat the hamburger. Obesity this year around the world, overeating will kill more people than starvation for the first time in the history of the world. It is a problem in New York. It's a problem across this country. It's a problem around the world. Even in India, where they still have starvation, they have a very high diabetes rate, which is one of the symptoms that you can tell the obesity rate. You can measure it basically by that. We've got to do something about it. And the judges said, well, you didn't include all stores. We included everybody we regulate. We don't regulate stores. That's up to the state. We regulate movie theaters and restaurants, and we did not leave out anybody we regulated, nor did we leave out anything that had the characteristics that has calories, no nutritional value, doesn't send it to the brain, the signal that you're full. And we just think they're wrong, and we're going to appeal. And I would, since we started this suit, 2,000 more Americans have died from obesity, just in the last few months. And so whoever comes after us is going to have to continue with this, or this carnage is going to continue. Yes, in the back.
Mitch Levy, WOR Radio 24/7 News. Mr. Mayor, what is the likelihood in the short time you have remaining in office to get the Court of Appeals, the highest court in the state, to
we hope so. Listen, there's no place that says that we're to sit back and not do anything. We're working as hard today as we worked for the last 11 years and 7 months. Ray Kelly continues to try to keep the crime down and keep you safe. He's not walking away from that job, and we're not walking away from this job. And we're not going to get everything done, and whoever comes after us is going to have the responsibility to carry on the fight against guns, to carry on the fight, all of these fights to improve the health of this city. That's the job. If life expectancy in this city is 2.5 years or something like that, greater than the national average, 3 years greater than it was 12 years ago, the next administration is going to have to improve on those numbers. That's the fundamental job of being mayor. Last question. Oh, I'll give you one. Sorry, I had no one say.
There are a couple hospitals being closed in Brooklyn or being threatened to close. What are your thoughts on that, and is the city have any responsibility?
When you have hospitals that are so small that they don't have all of the technology that you'd like to have at a bigger hospital, or that they just don't have the usage beds and they can't afford it, the reality is you can't have a hospital in every corner, and that's up to the state. But that's what you see playing out all across this country. We all talk about the high cost of health care and the fact that we'd like to have people live longer. Bigger, better hospitals probably are one of the answers there. You have to do it more efficiently, and you have to have more technology in one place. And so going to a big hospital Yeah, if you have a normal, for example, if you have a baby, normal delivery, you could do it at home with a midwife, very successful. But if you get in trouble, you want to be in a big teaching hospital. If you can, last question up here.
Samantha Liebman, FiOS 1 News. I just want to go back to the guns for a second. What would you say to legislators in the other states who say, stay out of our local politics?
Well, keep your guns out of our city. Couldn't be simpler. We'll give this young lady the next question if she ever gets done typing.
Danielle Chalakian from Metro New York. Are there cameras on city bikes, in or on?
No. Why would you?
It wasn't a very funny story.
Well, then you call the comedian.
Stop and frisk. Have you been able to?
Sir, I don't think I called on you or something. I'll give this gentleman a call. You've had your question.
Yoav Gonen, New York Post. I was wondering if Commissioner Kelly would comment on Bill Thompson's analogy between stop and frisk, the racial profiling there, and the Trayvon Martin racial profiling.
Yeah, I'm staying out of the mayor's race. I won't comment.
Thank you very much. This is a serious issue. We're getting killed, and we're getting killed with guns that come from elsewhere, and we have a vested interest and a legitimate interest in trying to protect our citizens, and we'll do that. Thank you.
Good job, John.